Welcome back, Ceramics 2. In this video, I'm going to show you how to pull handles. This is kind of a review video for Ceramics 2 from Ceramics 1 of pulling the handle on your mug, but I'm going to show you some new tricks and some new ways to pull handles so you can expand your vocabulary and have some more things to choose from for your artistic ideas. All right, so I'm going to show you how to take a handle and actually pull it right off of your form, number one. Number two, I'm going to show you how to have a pre-pulled handle, let it harden, and then kind of attach it onto your work so that you can kind of decide the shape and the kind of vision you want beforehand, and then work more sculpturally. And then last, attaching your handle, letting it stiffen up and get pliable, and then bending and shaping it from there. Okay, so step one, you have your picture that you threw. If it's attached to your board, take your wire tool, slide it underneath to cut it away, and then take the bottom, and you want to thumb the bottom. Remember, just like we did with our mugs in level 1, you want to thumb the bottom, get all the little chunks off of there. Make sure that you press your thumb into the center and make the center a little bit concave so you have the invisible foot right around the outside. Okay? So once you've got the floor of your pitcher thumbed off, then you're going to take some clay. It's already pre-wedged here and kind of patted into a ball. Then you can take it and over on the canvas work area by the windows, you can pat it down and get it a little bit more pointy at the end, so it kind of looks something like this. Okay, and I actually kind of like to roll it and pat it in my hands. A lot of kids like to do it on the tables. I actually prefer to do it in my hand and just make it a little bit longer and make it a little flat right up there at the top. Then I'm going to score and slip my pitcher. One thing a lot of artists will do when they get started learning how to pull pitchers is they'll take a brush or a paintbrush or something and put it right across from the spout. You want to make sure that your handle is right across from the spout, so coming off right here, so that it's comfortable to grab and pour with. If you put it cockeyed and you've got your handle over here on this side, it's just gonna be cockeyed and it's gonna be weird. You don't want to do that. If that helps you, great. If you can just eyeball it too and say, well, I know that this is where I want my handle to be right here, and then you can mark it and say, well, I know my handle is going to start right here. I'm going to score and slip right there, and I want the bottom of my handle to attach right here, so it's right below. You can eyeball it using this stick that's overlapping and kind of get that scoring and slipping ready. Okay, then put my slip on to prepare the surface. Remember, we put the slip on to prepare the surface and get the two moisture levels the same. Now I'm going to take my knuckle and bend this area in right here to make that little suction cup that we talked about in level 1. And my slipping area is not quite large enough. Okay, then I'm going to hold the inside of my pitcher, press this clay into the slipped area until all of that slip squishes out from the sides. Okay, now one key trick to this is that your pitcher or vessel, whatever you're throwing off of or pulling off of, is leather hard. Okay, if you try to do this with a piece of clay or a vessel that is still wet, you're going to damage the vessel. It's going to get all bent and twisted and not look very good at the end. So just like before when we did our handles, I'm going to smooth around the outside, both underneath and at the edges. Normally I would use my thumb, but for the video I'm using my finger so you guys can see it. Now I've got this huge chunk of clay on there. This is kind of ridiculous, it's a little big, but we'll work with that. Then you're gonna simply pull like we normally would, like I showed you last year. Okay, and as you do this, I would recommend doing this over the sink, or if you want to use the big slip bucket, you can do that too. But then you just take this huge chunk of clay, you pull it, and the beautiful thing about this method is then you don't have to worry about holding on to your handle as you're making it. You can make it just the right size, and then you can be done with it. You can like twist the pot in your hand as you go. It's kind of nice to have something to hang on to as you're doing this. You can hold it kind of any direction. And I'm going to kind of change direction myself here. And you can make it thicker, thinner. I'm actually going to cut a little bit of that off so that I can pull from the side. Again, I started with way too much clay, so I'm going to have to really pull this down and move that clay. Remember, as you're pulling, you want to make sure that you're pulling all the way off your handle so you don't get a big nubbin on the end and then it breaks off. Since you're in level 2, please use the bagged clay for pulling your handles. Okay, the bagged clay is so much nicer. It's so easy to pull a handle with the bagged clay because it doesn't crack and break the way that the level 1 clay does. Okay, so just make sure that you're doing that. If you choose to do this method, please make sure that as you're doing it, you're twisting and like reshaping each part of it, sometimes pulling maybe even with your thumb, so that you're making sure that the handle doesn't get too thick or too thin on one side. Okay, now I'm making a mess on the floor right here, so you guys are gonna make sure that you do it again over the sink so you don't make a mess. But for the video, I'm doing it this way. Now we've got this handle kind of looking right. It's maybe still a little bit thick at the top. Kind of nice doing a video, you can kind of see the other side. Okay, so now I've got this handle about like I want. I can turn it upside down, bend it, stick it onto my pre-slipped area. Now this is another trick. As you start this, make sure your handle is, again, right, and it looks, what I have to do is as I'm doing this, I'm looking kind of this direction down at the handle, seeing the spout on the other side, and making sure that it's all nice and aligned so that it doesn't look cockeyed or weird. And making sure that this side is straight, it's not twisted back and forth, and it's aligned with that picture. Now I'm just going to take my thumb and I'm going to cut that little bit off at the base. And then to secure it, I'm going to take my thumb, clean it off first, get it a little wet, and I'm just going to kind of rock it back and forth here and get a nice smooth transition from handle to pot. Now, one of the things that you want to do as you make your handle is make sure that it's obviously comfortable for people to use, but at the same time make sure there's no little leftover chunks. So I'm going to take my sponge here. I would recommend using a throwing sponge. I of course forgot to get that before I started the video, so I'm just using a regular sink sponge, but I would recommend using a throwing sponge. Get all the like crusty areas at the top. I like to swipe the side of the handle because sometimes there's some little sharp edges there. Wipe the bottom and get the surface nice and smooth. Okay, so that by the end you've got something that looks more like this. It's nice and smooth. There's no like sharp jagged edges all the way around. Then at the very end, double check that that rim and make sure that it's round. If it's not, kind of squish it back into roundness. I mean, unless you've got like a pot that's already been changed because you wanted it to be changed. But if you didn't want it to be changed and you wanted it to be round, re-round it. Okay, you can also use one of the rounders we have in class. Okay, so that's kind of how to pull a handle off of the pot while you're in Ceramics 2. Now I'm going to come back, as this video is getting long, so I'm going to make a second video with the other two handle styles. Okay, thanks for joining me for pulling a handle in Level 2.